Hey guys, this is our Christmas special. I hope everybody's enjoying their nice holiday break. This is our final episode of the season, and we hope to see you back here in February for season 2.
It's cricket time, man.
It's about the dumbest shit I've ever heard. So, you said topics for today. I've been reading this book by Kurt Vonnegut. It's called The Breakfast of Champions. So I would like to read a portion from that, and may want to talk a little bit about voice, about developing a voice, what it means to have a voice, and I think that will flow from this chapter that I'm going to read. This is a novel, actually. This is not a poem. So, I was kind of thinking about that. We could talk about the COVID stuff. We can. I think that we could. One of the things that I've noticed is, well, I guess not noticed. It's pretty evident, I guess. I had to message my job today, or last night. I said, "Hey, I may have been exposed," and because somebody that I was around also might have been exposed. Apparently, there's no CDC guidelines that would make me have to stay home, because I was not in direct contact with somebody who actually had COVID.
So basically, they say you can do whatever the fuck you want because nobody coughed down your throat with the virus.
Correct.
Okay. How did that make you feel when you found that out?
I was like, okay, that seems a little not responsible. I mean, I guess in their mind, they didn't understand how close I was to this person. So, being that I was pretty close to this person would make me feel like I need to quarantine.
Right. I can say for me that I've run into the fact that if I would need to get a test, it would kind of be like I had to prove that I needed that test. It wasn't as like I ran into somebody that could have possibly had it. I would have to show the symptoms, and that was the only way. And it was weird because you could try to say that if you really wanted to get the test, you could lie and get it. But if you told the truth and said that, hey, I just want to make sure that I'm good before anything really happens, they would just say, no, that's not what the tests are for.
Right.
So then you start to ask yourself, well, who are the tests actually for then?
Because people that are already sick, that have symptoms.
Does that not defeat the purpose? That's kind of the backwards part of it.
I think the test is probably just to verify. I think it's probably verification.
Oh, great. So, yeah. Hey, you already got everybody sick that you possibly could.
Exactly.
Now you're just going to call them and tell them. And, they're just going to have to wait until.
Yeah. So I was a little confused by that. I'm just like, I don't see how that's right. Why would it, if anybody else knew that was not on this committee, like, that I should not be coming into the office, I don't think they would want to be around me. So,
all right.
But,
well, are we going to talk about like the fact that how you got it was just a symptom of the bigger picture where everything is still open and you can't just tests aren't readily available. So it's not like anybody and their mother can just go and get a test right now, especially for people that don't have health insurance.
Right.
It's impossible.
And that's the thing that worries me. It's like, if I feel like I've been compromised and I have no symptoms and I'm asymptomatic, you should be testing everybody if they have been exposed, I think.
Yeah. So there's different types of testing, and one of them is where you just test randomly. Random testing has been used everywhere in the world to try to combat the virus, but it doesn't seem like we've done that here. Nope. That definitely can be a symptom of not having enough tests, and we're always on the back foot, I guess you can say. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because one of the biggest things that came out of Maryland during this whole entire pandemic was how Governor Hogan and his wife had secured 50,000 tests or something like that, or 500,000 coronavirus test kits. And come to find out, they couldn't use any of them.
Why not?
From what I've seen is that they weren't the quality of tests that the laboratories wanted. I'm guessing something was off. Maybe something inside of it wasn't up to the par that they would measure for coronavirus tests. But whatever it may be, they were rejected by every lab for testing. So
cool.
Right.
Great. It's great.
So what's next? So what is next exactly? Right. Do we just run around and everybody gets sick and just sums it up, or everybody gets the vaccine?
Look, if I have no help, right? Let's say that I'm a widower, right? And my grandkids that come around, once every couple months, decide to pay me a visit, right? And I get sick. What the fuck am I supposed to do if I can't go out and get groceries and stuff? Let's say I can't afford. You were telling me about this Instacart. What if they don't deliver to my area? There's like so many. Or what if? Somebody was telling me that it costs money to get it delivered, right? I've not actually signed up to get the service done. I think a lot of people are still going to go out if they have been exposed and if they're not showing symptoms. I don't think that people are going to stay in. I don't think that they are going to be responsible about it.
So other countries have been more responsible than us. Why is it so hard for Americans all to come together and just be on board and just say, you know what? We're not going to let this virus beat us. We're all going to come together, do what we all need to do to stay safe. Why is that so hard?
Can we just say that we've been beaten?
Beaten by?
Can we just say that?
Beaten by stupidity?
The virus beat us. We lost this war. All the wars we like to wage. There's another war that we didn't do so well.
So you're saying coronavirus is just another Vietnam War for us?
Yeah.
Except hopefully it doesn't last as long as the Vietnam War.
True.
Now that brings up to the next topic of the vaccine. Have you heard any new information about that?
I heard Britain has already rolled out. They're already inoculating their citizens. I think that's the correct word, inoculation.
You can call it what you want.
So that's pretty cool. William Shakespeare got vaccinated. He was this dude that lived like 20 miles away from where the actual Shakespeare lived. I guess it's like a generational thing where they name all the kids get named William. So, or all the male children.
That's not creepy at all.
It's the dude's his name was William Shakespeare.
Okay. So they're starting to roll out the vaccine. Now, what was the last vaccine that we really had given to everybody? Like, what are the list of vaccines that we've had? You know what I mean? Because from what I've read, vaccines take 5, 10, 15 years to make. And this one took a little bit less than a year.
When you bring all the greatest minds together, Dr. K talked about this in her radio program. For those of you who don't know who she is, it is fuck, I'm supposed to remember the radio station. What the fuck is it?
88.9
88.9. It's my second preset aside from NPR. She from 3 to 5 is a program hosted by Morgan State, and she talked about how if this is a global problem and everybody's coming together to try to solve it, we can expect that we have the best minds in science trying to solve this. Now, we're talking about polio vaccine and all the other. What did we have to get when we were a kid? I don't even know.
Smallpox. That's all I can fucking remember.
Are we supposed to know that? Or like, shouldn't we know?
No, I mean, we already got vaccinated, so we don't have to worry.
But like, shouldn't we? But they're like the things that when you have children, they still have to get vaccinated for a number of things. All right.
Well, I'm sorry. I am not ready for that, as you can tell. So I do not know. So yeah. I would tend to agree with her about all of the best minds get together and work for a solution. From what I read, I'll have to add the link. I believe it was a report on how the virus has impacted the actual scientific community and how it's allowed them to communicate and connect more because of this virus, and how, Zoom calls and everything have allowed scientists to be able to come together and to share their work and to find a cure in record time. Now, some people may say it's it has not been the fastest, but I'd rather take a year and not 10 years to figure it out.
That's true. I guess I should say why, or we should say why we're recording the way we're recording today, because it may sound different. We don't actually know what it's going to sound like. I would assume it's going to sound the same.
It's not. I already can tell it's not.
Right?
Yeah, because we're not sitting in the same positions. I got a cat over here crying.
We're like everybody else that has to work from home. I, as I mentioned earlier, myself may have been exposed to it through somebody else. Won't give out names, but we have to record this last podcast from each of our homes instead of being in one room. So this is definitely different.
Yeah, it definitely is different. But, you have to endure and be flexible, and thank goodness we were prepared for this situation.
We were?
Yeah, I have a mixer and you have your audio device.
Oh, perfect. Oh, right. That's right.
Right. This podcast is brought to you by
Focusrite.
Xenix Q1202 USB.
With Focusrite, you can still record your podcast, even though this fucking virus may kill you.
Oh my God. I don't think that's how endorsements work. And I don't think that's how you get paid.
Chapter 1. Kurt Vonnegut's Breakfast of Champions. Chapter 1. This is a tale of a meeting of two lonesome, skinny, fairly old white men on a planet which was dying fast. One of them was a science fiction writer named Kilgore Trout. He was a nobody at the time, and he supposed his life was over. He was mistaken. As a consequence of the meeting, he became one of the most beloved and respected human beings in history. The man he met was an automobile dealer, a Pontiac dealer, named Dwayne Hoover. Dwayne Hoover was on the brink of going insane. Listen, Trout and Hoover were citizens of the United States of America, a country which was called America for short. This was their national anthem, which was pure balderdash, like so much they were expected to take seriously. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming? And the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave? There were 1 quadrillion nations in the universe, but the nation Dwayne Hoover and Kilgore Trout belonged to was the only one with a national anthem which was gibberish, sprinkled with question marks. Here is what their flag looked like. And he actually has drawn he's a cartoonist too, so he drew a picture of a flag. It was the law of their nation, a law no other nation on the planet had about its flag, which said this, quote, "The flag shall not be dipped to any person or thing." Flag dipping was a form of friendly and respectful salute, which consisted of bringing the flag on a stick closer to the ground, then raising it up again. The motto of Dwayne Hoover's and Kilgore Trout's nation was this, which meant, in a language nobody spoke anymore, out of many, one, e pluribus unum. The undippable flag was a beauty, and the anthem and the vacant motto might not have mattered much if it weren't for this. A lot of citizens were so ignored and cheated and insulted that they thought they might be in the wrong country, or even on the wrong planet, that some terrible mistake had been made. It might have comforted them some if their anthem and their motto had mentioned fairness or brotherhood or hope or happiness, had somehow welcomed them to the society and its real estate. If they studied their paper money for clues as to what their country was all about, they found, among a lot of other Baroque trash, a picture of a truncated pyramid with a radiant eye on top of it, like this. There's a picture of the back of the money with the pyramid in the eye. Not even the President of the United States knew what that was all about. It was as though the country were saying to its citizens, "In nonsense is strength." A lot of the nonsense was the innocent result of playfulness on the part of the founding fathers of the nation of Dwayne Hoover and Kilgore Trout. The founders were aristocrats. They wished to show off their useless education, which consisted of the study of hocus pocus from ancient times. They were bum poets as well. But some of the nonsense was evil, since it concealed great crimes. For example, teachers of children in the United States of America wrote this date on blackboards again and again, and asked the children to memorize it with pride and joy. 1492. The teachers told the children that this was when their continent was discovered by human beings. Actually, millions of human beings were already living full and imaginative lives on the continent in 1492. That was simply the year in which sea pirates began to cheat and rob and kill them. Here was another piece of evil nonsense which children were taught: that the sea pirates eventually created a government which became a beacon of freedom to human beings everywhere else. There were pictures and statues of the supposed imaginary beacon for children to see. It was sort of an ice cream cone on fire. It looked like this. That's a picture of the torch held by the Statue of Liberty. Actually, the sea pirates who had the most to do with the creation of the new government owned human slaves. They used human beings for machinery, and, even after slavery was eliminated, because it was so embarrassing, they and their descendants continued to think of ordinary human beings as machines. The sea pirates were white. The people who were already on the continent when the pirates arrived were copper-colored. When slavery was introduced on the continent, the slaves were black. Color was everything. Here was how the pirates were able to take whatever they wanted from anybody else. They had the best boats in the world, and they were meaner than anybody else. And they had gunpowder, which was a mixture of potassium nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur. They touched a seemingly listless powder with fire, and it turned violently into gas. This gas blew projectiles out of the metal tubes at terrific velocities. The projectiles cut through meat and bone very easily, so the pirates could wreck the wiring or the bellows or the plumbing of a stubborn human being even when he was far, far away. The chief weapon of the sea pirates, however, was their capacity to astonish. Nobody else could believe, until it was much too late, how heartless and greedy they were. When Dwayne Hoover and Kilgore Trout met each other, their country was by far the richest and most powerful country on the planet. It had most of the food and minerals and machinery, and it disciplined other countries by threatening to shoot big rockets at them or to drop things on them from airplanes. Most other countries didn't have doodly squat. Many of them weren't even inhabitable anymore. They had too many people and not enough space. They had sold everything that was any good, and there wasn't anything to eat anymore, and still the people went on fucking all the time. Fucking was how babies were made. A lot of the people on the wrecked planet were communists. They had a theory that what was left of the planet should be shared more or less equally among all the people who hadn't asked to come to a wrecked planet in the first place. Meanwhile, more babies were arriving all the time, kicking and screaming, yelling for milk. In some places, people would actually try to eat mud or such on gravel, while babies were being born just a few feet away. And so on. Dwayne Hoover's and Kilgore Trout's country, where there was still plenty of everything, was opposed to communism. It didn't think that Earthlings who had a lot should share it with others unless they really wanted to, and most of them didn't want to. So, they didn't have to. Everybody in America was supposed to grab whatever he could and hold on to it. Some Americans were very good at grabbing and holding, were fabulously well-to-do. Others couldn't get their hands on doodly squat. Dwayne Hoover was fabulously well-to-do when he met Kilgore Trout. A man whispered those exact words to a friend one morning as Dwayne walked by, fabulously well-to-do. And here's how much of the planet Kilgore Trout owned in those days. Doodly squat. And Kilgore Trout and Dwayne Hoover met in Midland City, which was Dwayne's hometown, during an arts festival there in autumn of 1972. As has already been said, Dwayne was a Pontiac dealer who was going insane. Dwayne's incipient insanity was mainly a matter of chemicals, of course. Dwayne Hoover's body was manufacturing certain chemicals which unbalanced his mind. But Dwayne, like all novice lunatics, needed some bad ideas too, so that his craziness could have shape and direction. Bad chemicals and bad ideas were the yin and yang of madness. Yin and yang were Chinese symbols of harmony. They looked like this. The bad ideas were delivered to Dwayne by Kilgore Trout. Trout considered himself not only harmless, but invisible. The world had paid so little attention to him that he supposed he was dead. He hoped he was dead. But he learned from his encounter with Dwayne that he was alive enough to give a fellow human being ideas which would turn him into a monster. Here was the core of the bad ideas which Trout gave to Dwayne. Everybody on Earth was a robot, with one exception, Dwayne Hoover. Of all the creatures in the universe, only Dwayne was thinking and feeling and worrying and planning and so on. Nobody else knew what pain was. Nobody else had any choices to make. Everybody else was a fully automatic machine whose purpose was to stimulate Dwayne. Dwayne was a new type of creature being tested by the creator of the universe. Only Dwayne Hoover had free will. Trout did not expect to be believed. He put the bad ideas into a science fiction novel, and that was where Dwayne found them. The book wasn't addressed to Dwayne alone. Trout had never heard of Dwayne when he wrote it. It was addressed to anybody who happened to open it up. It said to simply anybody, in effect, hey, guess what? You're the only creature with free will. How does that make you feel? And so on. It was a tour de force, but it was mind poison to Dwayne. It shook up Trout to realize that even he could bring evil into the world, in the form of bad ideas. And after Dwayne was carted off to a lunatic asylum in a canvas carnisole, Trout became a fanatic on the importance of ideas as causes and cures for diseases. But nobody would listen to him. He was a dirty old man in the wilderness, crying out among the trees and underbrush, ideas or the lack of them can cause disease. Kilgore Trout became a pioneer in the field of mental health. He advanced his theories disguised as science fiction. He died in 1981, almost 20 years after he made Dwayne Hoover so sick. He was by then recognized as a great artist and scientist. The American Academy of Arts and Sciences caused a monument to be erected over his ashes. Carved in its face was a quotation from his last novel, his 290th novel, which was unfinished when he died. The monument looked like this, and it reads, Kilgore Trout, 1907 to 1981, quote, "We are healthy only to the extent that our ideas are humane." Can I even get finger snap claps?
I don't know. Can you?
I've been practicing. Look.
Okay. What did I just hear?
This man want to talk about COVID. Oh my god. This shit is so funny.
You said I want to talk about COVID.
He said you want to talk about people getting vaccinated. Everybody's worried. Yes, we're worried, but I don't know. I had to read this. I read this a couple of nights ago and was like, fuck, if I don't read this, I'm going to regret it.
Okay, talk about it then. What about it?
So first I want to talk about how I even stumbled upon Kurt Vonnegut, because I had purchased a couple of years ago, per a recommendation of a professor of mine, The Sirens of Titan, which he also wrote. And I tried to read it at the time, but couldn't wrap my head around it. So I put it down. And then I read a New Yorker article by Salman Rushdie, who... Salman Rushdie was born in India, but at the time, I don't know where he was. He had written a book some time ago, maybe 10 years ago now, called The Satanic Verses, which this book was in direct conflict to the Islamic faith. And so, I don't remember who, but somebody had issued a fatwa against Salman Rushdie, which is pretty much a hit on Rushdie. And that's how I got to know that author. But Salman Rushdie, had written an article on Kurt Vonnegut, and that article was on Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, which was about the concentration camp in World War II, and Kurt Vonnegut was in the war. And I believe he was a prisoner of war, if I understand correctly. He was a prisoner of war before being liberated by the United States, so to speak. Or the Allies, we'll say. Kurt Vonnegut is American. He's an American author. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who, her ex had read Vonnegut, and he was fond of Breakfast of Champions. So I started to read. I picked up Slaughterhouse-Five, and I'm still going to read that, but I couldn't help but be entranced by the opening of this book by Vonnegut, which, if there was a more poignant description of the absolute absurdity of this country, as he is a satirist, Kurt Vonnegut, this was a fantastic opening, and definitely wanted me to read more. So aside from that, reading the book is like reading a comic in a way, because he draws pictures throughout. And so I've only read the first 3 chapters, and I can say that just having read those first 3, he's a master storyteller. How he can just make something as simple as we have a flag and we bring it down when somebody dies, or if something tragic happens, we lower the flag at half staff and we raise it back up. What the fuck does that mean? Why do we do that? Like, we have these traditions, we have these things that have existed for so long. We have this money that has been printed with all these, hundreds and hundreds of years old relics. We don't know what any of this really means. So he is attempting to paint the picture that it's maybe a little absurd, and even though it is absurd, we need to know it, because ironically, what he has done in this first chapter is paint the United States as a little crazy, which it is, but it's only crazy in the absence of knowledge. We need to understand what these things are. When he talks about, 1492 Columbus, and how he explains it so well without mentioning anybody by name, that should say something. The fact he describes a torch on Lady Liberty as a ice cream cone on fire, it might draw pause to be like, where do all these things come from? Why are they the way they are? And I go back to this quote: "We are healthy only to the extent that our ideas are humane." And Kilgore Trout wrote many science fiction books, this character that Kurt Vonnegut has created, and was able to supposedly capture the mind of this one guy. And that was enough for Kilgore Trout to be like, holy shit, words have tremendous power. I wrote 290 books, and one dude took me seriously, and he went into an insane asylum. You would kind of feel morally responsible. What do you think?
Nothing I can say. I don't. So, yeah, that's your thing today. Okay.
You have nothing to say about a fantastic fairy tale of the United States.
No.
Cool. Great.
I might have to read it for myself to get a better understanding. But from what I heard, it was just an ironic depiction of who America is and how we got here.
Yes. That's the whole point. Yes.
But that's about it for me. I don't know. I guess it just didn't hit me the same way it hit you.
Damn, that sucks.
It's fine. I mean, I already do this stuff.
Yeah, maybe you have to read it then. I just think that the way that it's composed into, you have to see the pictures in there. It's it makes it seem all that more ridiculous to me. Not that it wasn't ridiculous to begin with, but, and this is what I wanted
What's
to talk about.
What's the most absurd thing that you read about the formation of this country? Like what?
I don't think any one thing stands out. I think that all of it in its own way, again, the flag traditions, the history we tell ourselves about Columbus, the what we teach our children in school, the symbology on our money, like what is any of it? And that should, I think, kind of the other point of this is to raise questions. Like, we've kind of all just accepted these things that we do, and in some way we don't really accept them because sometimes we don't pay attention. I don't, and except in cases of mass tragedy where we lower the flag and everybody kind of has a national day of mourning. I can't say people probably pay too much attention to when each state house lowers their flag. But it should be an indictment of that this is a whole other story, right? What I wanted to talk about today was voice and how voice is in many layers. And the first layer in this book is at the level of the story, which is what Vonnegut wrote. What is the voice of Kilgore Trout to this Pontiac dealer who believed what he read? Then the next layer of that is what is Vonnegut's voice in communicating this story as a storyteller to us, right? In addition to that, a more broadly, maybe more inclusive question that we can talk about is what is the voice of the United States, either its citizenry or as a nation. How do we present ourselves to the world? What do we say about ourselves? What do other countries say about us? So yeah, I want to maybe explore that if you would grant me that.
Okay, choose your protagonist for this question. So are you're choosing America as the center of your...
Yeah, because I think it would be too limited to talk about this story, but I use a story as an example.
Well, think of it like this. Did that sound like an American wrote that story, or somebody else outside of America wrote that story?
It's supposed to be written as if it's an outsider, right? He's describing all of these very strange things that this narrator has noticed.
Right.
As the novel goes on, that changes, but it's supposedly in the first chapter it is portrayed as an outsider.
An outsider looking at the traditions of America, yes, and the formation of America.
So, that's one thing we can discuss. The other thing that is something that I am still grappling with for myself is our individual voices. What does it mean to have a voice in a country that we are granted many freedoms to say what we want, as opposed to countries that are very strict about what you can be critical of? And having the freedom to do that, I think, is powerful. And
so, would you say that the First Amendment is one of the most powerful amendments ever written into the Constitution?
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay, so our critique of America. I don't know where I will begin. The reason why I wanted to talk about the virus is because it is and will be a case study that will be looked over, thought about, and investigated for years to come. And unfortunately, we are the test dummies. We are the lab rats. We are the Reese's monkeys with the top of our skulls removed with little electrodes in our brains. We think as Americans that we are the center of everything. But I think we in America, we are like a black hole. We take everything and nothing gets out. That's it.
Say more about that.
No, think about how a mirror reflects things. And I use this analogy for a lot of things because I feel certain people are mirrors, certain people are black holes, and certain people are like a little bit of everything. But for America in particular, we consume everything. And just like a black hole, our gravity and our weight is so large and we are so massive that it's almost impossible to get out of our pull.
Yeah, it's like when Italy first got hit, Italy and Spain, and that was in the news a lot when it first coronavirus was going around, and then as these numbers went up early on in our country, we barely hear anything. We don't talk about really what other countries go through, and we seem pretty us-centric about all of it.
Yeah, we are the center of everything, and it's weird because you would think that if we are in the center of everything, we would have the best solutions to everything. But it's the exact opposite. It seems as though we are so self-centered that we don't even look at the individual in a sense of you are an American just like the next one. It's just like, that's it. It's just we are worried about ourselves, each household. it's like we can't even look outside of our own household. We can't even look outside of our own state. Like of course, there's been information coming in from every state about what's going on. But if you look at like the big picture, we are a country, but we don't treat it like it. So, of course, it would be hard to get on board when you have one state that's shutting down everything, millions of people are dying, and then another state that hasn't even mandated wearing a mask. So maybe a country that doesn't have states like we have could have just blanketly said, we're going to do this. And everybody did it.
But freedom, bro, freedom and such, you can't.
Well,
everybody feel like their freedom is being impinged upon.
Right. And those people have the freedom to die. And that's the unfortunate part. We all have to make choices. And if anything we learn from 2020 is that you cannot trust your neighbor. You can't. It's just that simple. Think about for you and for the people around you, how it felt to find out that somebody had symptoms and still came to work.
It makes me mad because, especially when you are in charge of the operation, you would think that you would put the wealth or the health of your employees, you would want them to be in the healthiest situation possible.
Well, that doesn't matter when everybody else but you is a robot.
Yikes.
You are the only one that can feel. You thought I wasn't listening? That was my icing on the cake when he said that.
Yep.
That everybody around you is a robot and you are the only one alive. That sums up what is going on right now.
Yeah, I would say that's and this is no exception though, because we do that regardless, right? We like to pretend that we don't function that way when it's not in these circumstances as they are. This has just allowed us to see that, right? People keep talking about COVID. It certainly changed how I see things in my life. People talk about that, not a lot, but I have definitely seen things about how they have been awakened to how things are in many realms. Mm-hmm. One of them being racism, yes, but also just simple human kindness, and so seeing that people operate selfishly is not surprising, but we have that perspective now. We can see it's very clear now, I think.
Okay. I think the one thing that I thought was lacking was how he downplayed what the pirates really did. I understand he said that they had muskets and they had black powder and they had the ability to shock and awe. Mm. But I think for me, just the fact that you could do that to another human being for your benefit is exactly what we do every day to this day.
I don't know if he was downplaying it.
No, I'm not saying downplaying it, but he didn't talk about the fact that it's that they had an advantage, right?
Right.
The fact that they were just ruthless. That was their advantage. I don't necessarily agree with that. I still feel like the people there on any continent, they have a capacity to be ruthless.
Yeah, but he says this. He says the chief weapon of the sea pirates, however, was their capacity to astonish. Nobody else could believe it until much too late how heartless and greedy they were. So I don't know if he really wanted that to be the pivotal moment was to focus on Columbus. I think it is one among many of the examples that he's talking about.
Still interesting that he calls him a pirate.
Yeah, sea pirates.
Yeah, I mean, what have I learned from this year? You can't trust anybody.
Nope.
But you also have to start actually and truly trusting the people around you. And
you have to invest in them.
You have to be vulnerable. Like, say, for example, the ultimate vulnerability right now is to be around somebody without a mask. So that is that silent agreement that I am feeling okay. I don't have a sneeze. I don't have a cough. I don't have a fever. Now, you touched on this earlier, but for the people that are alone and that don't have that support group and don't have the means to order all their food off of Instacart and have it delivered to their front door if they have a front door, it creates a nuance. Now, instead of it being about trust, it's more about just survival and that primitive need to maintain and survive is more important than you not getting sick.
Right.
And that pits everybody against each other. And that's why I say we're like lab rats, because we have multiple social experiments going on right now. Yes, the virus is here, but there's also another virus that's happening, for me at least. It's the virus of, do you really trust the people you're around? Do you really trust your community?
How do you gauge that?
You know, it's weird because let's say, for example, back in the day, if you're a black man, a white woman would clutch her purse when you walk past. But now, instead of clutching her purse, she just steps 6 feet apart from you. I was just at Trader Joe's attempting to go inside, and there was a line that was at least 100 people long. And none of them were socially distanced. But it was just a feeling of, I'm middle class. I'm upper middle class. I do what I have to do. There's no way I have the virus. So yes, let's all pack into this tiny ass store so that we can get our goods.
Yeah, that's something. Safety in their own numbers, right? Corporate is like that too. People feel like people that just go home and come into the office. Oh yeah, they'll be safe to come to the office. Well, you get emails every other day if somebody's sick. Why do people feel that they can go into Trader Joe's and Wegmans and Fresh Market and so on, Whole Foods, and do that? They feel comfortable. Right?
Like feel like it's sanitized, like some dude walked past and sanitized every fucking apple before you touched it.
Right. Mom's Organic Market sanitizes all. There's some guy standing outside that sanitizes all of the
carts.
All the carts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's good, but there is that class sanitization.
Yep. There you go.
Where you have that unspoken comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from?
Why are you asking me? I'm pretty sure. Is that a trick question?
It's a rhetorical question because it was already there, right? This just allowed it to be seen for what it is.
And now it's just like that clutch purse. Now it's that immediate step back, a step away that you don't even think about.
Yeah, and I'll never forget this because I started my job during this virus, and I went to lunch with a coworker of mine, and we had never gone out to lunch before. We walked downtown at Fells Point. Must have been like right before my accident, and we walked, wearing masks, and I stepped aside to let this black gentleman to come by, and he like was, I think, offended that I stepped out of the way to let him pass. Like he wanted me to, I don't know. Yeah, but it was very clear that so I had done something wrong. So I experienced that firsthand. I witnessed that and it's difficult to gauge because at the one token, yes, we all need to be socially distant, but in what way unconsciously are we pretending that we are okay based on our class demographic?
Yep. Maybe because the poorest are getting hit the hardest.
Right.
So if you look like you're poor, then you definitely have the virus.
Yep.
Which is funny because every time I look at people, I say, you guys don't even understand how clean my shit is right now, okay?
Right.
I wonder how many people have wipes in their house, in their car, right? Not a lot of people. I've seen those people that are afraid, like they'll wear latex gloves and...
Oh, yeah.
That's not actually bad. As long as you don't touch your cell phone with your latex gloves. Now, that's where I draw the line of irony. But the whole point is, it has really shown me how much people don't trust each other.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. I think that this has shown so many things, and here we are again. And what more evidence do you need? How else do you need to be demonstrated the lack of distrust? There was a clip that I played. I didn't play it. I posted it. There was a clip that I reposted from Killer Mike. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch it.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why is that? I mean, is it just because people are lazy today or they're bored? I mean, are we just like bored, spoiled children who've just been lying in the bathtub all day, just playing with their plastic duck, and now they're just thinking, well, what can I do?
Okay, yes. We are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money? And that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks? And it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. And when I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. Just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. That we really should feel like Jews in Germany in the late 30s. Get out of here. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished, and that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, and that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
Oof.
Cool. What was the name of this movie?
1981 film, My Dinner with Andre. Killer Mike posted this on his Instagram, and I said I have to repost this.
Okay.
I have to.
All right. So, I mean, there you go. I guess you went full circle with the Slaughterhouse-Five.
There you go.
So, I was always told that, and I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but during Hitler's reign and the height of the concentration camps, there could be maybe 300 prisoners, Jewish prisoners, to 1 or 2 guards. When he would say this, to me it felt like he was saying that they could have just fought back and just won. They could have just killed the 2 guards and been free.
Right. I think that there's the idea that, yeah, there are 2 guards, but then there are levels to that. Yeah, you kill the 2 guards, but then what? Well, a battalion that's going to show up is like the entire weight of the Third Reich going to come. You know what I mean? So,
and I think that that's the key. That is the question. They kill those 2 guards, and then more come. And then more come. And then all of this was for nothing because you'll be dead. And then they will rewrite the history books and make it seem like what you did was your own fault. And how you died was your own fault. So this example can be used many ways.
Universally.
We've read the Haitian Revolution and how still to this day Haiti is still paying back countries for getting their freedom. Countries and companies.
I thought they had finished paying back France, but that they're in so much debt now.
They still owe Citibank money.
Wow.
So that just shows you how oppressive hate and power is.
Did you read the article that I sent you about how they don't even teach the Haitian Revolution in French schools?
Yes. Why would they? We talked about it before. Revolution is only for Europeans. Everywhere else is a revolt.
It's interesting that because it happened during Napoleon.
Yeah.
That they talk about Napoleon's defeats on the European continent.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't talk about that defeat. That's very interesting, actually.
Right. Why would he? Like, why would they? That's just a small little asterisk on his legendary resume. But this thing again about robots, we've all seen Terminator in the movie, right? And we really like sat there and thought, oh, the robots are coming to kill us. But
what if we're the robots?
Right. Exactly. What if we are the robots? I really need you to watch a movie. It's called Tenet. It is a rendition of time travel that I've never witnessed before. And to me, it changed the way I see everything.
Wow.
I am a fanatic for sci-fi, anything that has to do with outer space, anything that has to do with time travel. I've always flocked to it.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I am a time traveler. So, based on that, I will have to watch Tenet and let you know what I think about it.
Right. And the thing that really struck me was one point in the movie where he asked a question and he had actually answered his own question, if that makes sense.
That's interesting.
I'm trying to say it in the most ambiguous way to make you want to see the movie as well as not give away the theme.
I definitely want to see it. It's a Christopher Nolan film, so yes. I'll definitely watch it.
It's a great movie. I would actually recommend everyone to watch it multiple times, which I'll probably do tonight, because it gives you a different perspective on how time works and on the reach that you can have on the past and the future.
So you're just going to ignore that I said I was a time traveler?
No, I'm not going to ignore it. I already know what you mean by it. But
do they know what I mean by it?
No, they won't, because I'm going to edit it out.
Why, bro? Come on.
Wait, are you saying you're going to time travel, like you're going to watch it and then like tomorrow we're going to talk about it? Or you're going to watch it and then time travel back in time and we can talk about it now?
That'd be pretty cool if I could do that.
Who says you can't?
Right? Fuck.
Physics?
He's
Fuck
right.
physics. I've always had this sneaky suspicion that, and I've told you this, and you never really said anything about it. I always had this sneaky suspicion that anytime I needed to write a paper, anytime I needed to do anything really, it had already been done. And I wasn't really worried because I knew that it would get done and that my future self had already done it. And it kind of gave me pause, and it kind of comforted me to know that that means that all you have to do is start. And once you start, you will eventually finish. Now, we live in a
Yes.
time that's instantaneous.
But plot twist, it doesn't mean it's right. But yes.
Doesn't have to be right.
True.
And that's the whole point. That's why this movie changed the way I saw things. Was because it's always been about going back to something or going forward to something. But not about what happens when they meet.
I don't know what you mean. So I'm going to have to watch the movie. And we will have to talk about it.
Right. But yeah, we can talk about that off air. That doesn't matter to me. But the whole point is what you talked about in this book, and then with the current state of America and the world, all we want to do is see a day without this, right? That's all we want to see.
Yeah, but this book was written and this video clip was from a movie of many decades ago. And in the clip, he talks about the 60s being
The height.
the height of human beingness, we'll say.
Yeah. Height of existence was the 60s.
It was what? Is it the Summer of Love?
67. I know I said 69 last time, but it's 67.
And then, when did MLK get assassinated?
Rest in
Was it
peace.
68, I think?
60.
And then
yeah,
when
continue.
did Nixon get into office? 68, I think. So I'm just saying, turn of the turn of the 60s into the 70s, it was saying probably was pretty shitty because then there was a drug war, right? It was in the 70s.
That was the 80s. Before that was just like that weird segregation thing where like it didn't exist anymore and kids were starting to desegregate schools and you know, so that was a whole thing. And I think one of the things that we never really talk about in American history are the 12 years after slavery had ended where black people just did whatever they wanted. And then segregation became a thing. So we always talk about like the end of something, but you always have to understand there's a grace period.
Yes.
So I wonder what we're in now. Are we in something or are we in a grace period?
We are.
Because to me, it seems as though that time that's being taken is for the enemy, as you can say, to reunite and join forces again and become strong enough to go back in and effectively oppress people. So we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
We are, right now, I believe we're in a transition period. If we're going to talk about that we won an election, but what does that mean?
We didn't win anything.
Well, we changed the seat of power in the country to
Yeah.
to give people hope that they can be better off. For whatever that's worth, I don't know if it's worth anything, but say it might be worth something, right? That allows us to be in that transition period. Right?
Yeah.
So right now,
we're in a holding pattern, as you can say.
yes. Because we've been fighting at least since. Fuck. I mean.
Well, my question is this. We're in a holding pattern. What are we holding for?
Self-preservation?
If we can watch a movie that came out in 1981 talking about the destruction of man, and how we are all robots. And then 40 years later, the only thing we can say that is different, that technology is far superior to what it was then. But what about the rest of our lives? How has life changed besides technology?
How have our ethics changed? Right? Ethics is a study of how one should live one's life.
Okay. Or how one shouldn't live their life is how I would say.
Well, one or the other. People, philosophers try to come up with systems that they think, or they have in the past. We don't really do that anymore, but people feel that they have some kind of free will and moral responsibility. I would say most people probably feel that way. Mm-hmm. To create a life that they find worth living. And for me, that philosophy is actually called absurdism. And it was written by a philosopher who didn't consider himself a philosopher. He was actually a journalist and novelist called Albert Camus. He was a French existentialist, although he, if I remember correctly, was not born in France, but quickly became associated with that movement. But he wrote the theory of absurdism, which is kind of and I know somebody that's listening to this will probably tell me I'm wrong, it is part and parcel investigates nihilism. Nihilism is the idea that nothing has meaning, right? As I am recalling from Camus' theory in his book, The Myth of Sisyphus, absurdism is the idea that, yes, nothing has any meaning, but it only has meaning insofar as we give it meaning, right? And for Camus, that was art. Through the creating process, you create art. That to him gave life meaning. And I read this some number of years ago now. So we all have ethics. That's mine. I subscribe to, I only get meaning based on what I create. That's why I have to be a poet and a writer and an artist and all these things.
Okay. See, the reason why I said it's not how you should live your life, I said it's how you shouldn't, is because what would you say would be easier to control someone? To tell them what they cannot do or tell them what they can do?
If you tell somebody they can't do something, they're going to do it.
No, that's not the question I'm asking. I asked which one's easier.
Which one's easier to control somebody?
Yes.
It would be that. It would be telling what not to do.
Right.
Right?
Because let's say, for example, the 10 Commandments, Frank. You shall not have any other gods besides me.
Thou shalt break every goddamn rule on these 2 tablet stones.
You shall not make idols.
We've done that since they were written. They did that as soon as he came down from the fucking the mountaintop. As soon as he came down, all his followers they were worshiping. I think they were worshiping a golden calf, if I remember correctly.
And guess what they were taking? Fucking masculine.
My kind of people.
So yeah. So we have and we have these rules that we can't do. But what if people would say, Frank, hey, I've got these code of ethics I want you to read every day. And the first thing it said was every other human being is just like you? Would people be like, "Oh, cool, that's great. All right, what am I going to do with this?" Right? You talk about having purpose, and Camus says the process of, correct me if I'm wrong, in the process of making art,
creation or meaning making, yes.
You make meaning when you make things. Where do you draw the line between creation and stuff that already existed?
Well, certainly things can be repurposed. There's plenty of good examples of recycled art, right? People use a base template of something that's already been created and create something off of that. So there are many ways to create. I don't think it's limited to starting from scratch and just going with it. I know you had mentioned, we had this discussion earlier about everything being art, and I think that that's kind of cheap, and in the following way.
I can't wait for this one.
So there's often been this discussion of art and realism. And if everything is art, then how could it be? Because I don't know, it's tough because everything simply can't be real. Or everything cannot be art. Like these stack of books I have in this room. Right? What's the intent of these books? Are these books art?
Yes.
Why do you say so?
The art that it took to create that book. The art that it
No, but
to bound the book.
I'm not talking about the book itself. I'm talking about this stack of books.
Okay.
Right?
Would you not say that that's just like a bunch of paintings stacked up in your room?
Let's say there were a bunch of paintings stacked up in my room. Let's say they're not books.
Right.
Let's say they're a stack of paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Are they art?
Do they exist is the question.
They exist. I'm looking at them right now. Let's say there's a whole stack of paintings.
Yes. It's art.
It's not, because in my mind, it's a function of what it's doing. So if it's not hung up on the wall, if I have no way of being in communion with it or admiring it or having some kind of relation to it, it's just simply a stack of paintings.
You know, this is interesting because that's actually the parallel that I was looking for. You fell into my trap. Now, I want you to take the word art and replace it with humanity. Can you do that for me?
Okay.
So you're saying that everything that around us doesn't have an element of humanity unless it has no purpose.
Say it again.
Okay, let me say it one more time. So you've said that like the stack of paintings, that is just a function of what exactly?
The paintings can only be art if we are in some relation to it, right? If it's simply on a stack on my floor right here like these books are, it's not really it's no better than a paperweight. It doesn't serve any function. It's not doing anything. It's not creating impressions on me. It's not inspiring me to then go on to.
That's ironic to what you're stating though, because you're saying that now it's not art because you're not looking at it, that doesn't change the fact that if it was up on your wall or laying on the ground,
it's not looking at it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm looking at it. I can look at it on the ground. If it's on the ground, I can look at it. Okay, cool. But what is my disposition towards it? What am I? How am I looking at it? If I'm looking at it on the ground, I'm just like, oh, it's a stack of fucking paintings. I got a painting in my closet over here. It's covered up, right? It's covered up painting. I'm not actively engaged in thinking about how it makes me feel, or if I've had a drink, or if I've had a joint, how does it make me feel, or what does it inspire me to write or think about? If I don't have any of those, if I'm not in a relation with it in any way, then it's simply just as it is. It's part of the real world. It's realism, right?
You're losing me, because I'm getting lost at the point of how an object can be seen as art and cannot be seen as art depending on its function.
All right, well, let's take the example of the museum, right? There's a famous example of, I believe his name is Duchamp, the toilet, right?
Okay.
So the famous example is this guy. It's pretty much just a toilet. That's it. He took this toilet and he put it in a museum. And it was an exhibit. Is that art? Right? Is the fact that because another question is it because it's in a museum, does that make it art?
No,
see, I think question, right?
See, I think that's where I'm trying to say, and I don't think you're getting that it should all be considered art. And it seems kind of elite to only call certain things art because it gives you some feeling.
No. It's not elite. And I understand what you're saying, and it's not elite. What I'm saying is that I don't need a feeling. It is what value am I putting into it? It requires an effort on my part, right? Mm-hmm. It is not simply a function of it being a painting that makes it art. It becomes art once I give it the recognition, the attention, the reverence, the
notoriety. Everything is art. Everything is art.
It has the potential to be art. It does not make it art simply as it is. It becomes art when we give it the value it needs, right? That's the definition of absurdism.
Well, the whole point is, does everything not have a value?
In and of itself? Are you saying things have inherent value?
And that was the whole point. And that was my original question. Can you say water is art?
No. Just like the ocean, if you capture it on film in a certain way, but
somebody can paint the ocean and now it's art.
So the question is, do things have inherent value?
Everything has inherent value.
I don't agree with that.
Then why does it exist?
Do things need to have value to exist?
You tell me, because obviously nothing has value until you do what?
Do you give it meaning?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Camus, you're full of shit.
No, I mean, people have talked about this problem a lot, about things have inherent value or not. Aristotle talks about this. But simply because something exists does not make it have value.
Simply because something exists,
it does not.
It does not have. When you say value, do you mean like a physical value, a emotional value?
See, I think that's a hiccup, because I think when I say value, people get it conflated with morality, and it's not a moral category.
I'm not talking about morality. I'm just saying, all right, let's say for example,
not morality, but a moral category. So is something good or bad, right? When I say something has value, does not mean if it doesn't have value, does not mean it's not good. That's not what that means. That's the big conundrum there. So when I say something has value, I mean, does it have value to me? It does not mean oh, this is a good painting or this is a bad painting. That's not what that means. It means it has value to my life because I may have a certain affinity to Impressionism, and I like those paintings from that era, or what have you. Value is not a moral category.
Right. Now I think that's what I was trying to get at last episode, about how I feel like the world we live in now, that you are given value and notoriety solely on the fact of what you provide for everyone else. If you sat in your house for the rest of your life and wrote stuff down just for you, you could be the smartest man in the world, but nobody would know. Does that mean that you are not a contributing member of society if you do not share it? Do you want me to draw the parallel again?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the whole purpose of art by Camus is what again?
It's not the purpose of art. It's the function of art is something separate. We were talking about, for Camus, the idea of having meaning, right? And how, in order to have meaning, you have to create the meaning. That is not inherent.
Okay, so in order to have meaning, you must create the meaning. In order to have humanity, you must create humanity.
There's nothing inherently... There is certainly something inherently human about all of us. But there is the humanness that we are referring to, I believe, or that we want to talk about. That does not exist because before there is quote-unquote civilization, there is what Fichte calls a state of nature. So we all kind of live in, we can say, I don't know, we can say small towns, and we kind of barter with each other, right? And there's this whole political philosophy that's about that. But before we have kind of social contracts and ideas about, how we should treat each other in a society and all that kind of shit, there is a state of nature where people are still trying to figure each other out, right? And we're trying to see what codes and morals and values we all have.
So you're saying state of nature would be, in terms of the meaning of art, it would be that everything doesn't have value, right? You're saying that state of nature is...
In order to exit the state of nature to get to what Fichte called the civil society, it requires, some of it might even be contractual, right? We have constitutions and shit like that. But in order to even progress, we have to put forth the effort, right? Whether it's that political philosophy, whether it's art, whether it's humanity, nothing is simply as it is because it is. We have to put forth some meaning making to make it what we want it to be. I don't think that's an unusual thing. But I don't think is that we can simply act in the same manner of that, everybody operates under the guise of common sense, and we all have like this implicit humanness that makes us all Americans. That's not a thing. We wrote a Declaration of Independence and a Constitution that aspired to be something greater than we were at the time when we wrote it, and they failed miserably. And we still cannot even live up to those ideals that were written 250 years ago. So we have to put in the effort to make the meaning that we want, whether that's for us for community-based, whether that's us for artistic reasons, whether that is us for simply being individuals in relation to other individuals. There is no meaning as it is, but by doing it and, for me, creating, I think it's a lot better than it would be otherwise.
You have fun at night, don't you?
Would you?
You do, don't you? I have a question,
you mean, bro.
Have you actually ever told me your opinion? I don't think you have.
What, until now?
No, you still haven't. You're under the disguise of all of these old ancient farts who fuck their sons and nephews. No, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. And the issue is this. And the issue I have is this. It all goes down to the basis of existence. And to ask if you exist, does that have meaning intrinsically if you already exist?
No.
Okay. Well, who is to say that that is correct? Just existing isn't enough to deem respect morally.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you. It's not. They're two different categories.
It's not. You're trying to separate it through this legislative means of what people have done. But seriously, you say,
I'm being serious. I mean, it's not legislative.
It is.
We have ways. No, we have ways in which we talk about things. Right now, we're talking about means of value.
Right. And I'm saying that water is art. Do you understand how water is art, Frank?
How?
Where did it come from?
The Earth.
Right. Where did everything come from? The universe?
Okay.
Okay. Why did the universe create the Earth?
Physics.
Oh, it just woke up one day and said, look, you know what? Fuck it, guys. We're creating this new thing called physics. Let's run with it.
I mean, that's how we describe things.
No, but I'm just saying, we call it physics. But before us, we don't know the name. We created the word physics, correct?
Do you think that creation has any meaning?
The fact that you can't see that the fact that it already got here is the same way that somebody wakes up and writes a poem. It's the same way that somebody gets up and paints a picture. It's the same way that somebody...
I disagree with you. Yeah, I understand.
Existence breeds existence. Correct? Or...
Yes, but that's an existential question. See, I guess what we're getting caught up in is that we're talking about the same thing. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's existential questions. There are
you don't have
questions.
To. I understand.
Right?
No, and I think that's the whole point. A physicist and a mathematician are working on two different things, right? Mm-hmm. And then they figure out that they've actually been solving the equation for each other this entire time.
Yeah.
At no point would they ever think to look at each other's work because your degree is in physics and my degree is in math. Mm. Where is the common ground? Why?
We share the language of mathematics.
Why? Not necessarily, because my mathematics is grounded in facts, and while yours is grounded in potential facts. Like physics is that not literally bending math?
Sure.
Okay, so somebody gets to play ball, and then the other one has to stick to like the Bible. Do you understand what I mean? Yes. That's why I'm getting confused. It's like
you're trying to ask me, right? Do I think? Well, let me just make sure that you are in fact asking me this. Are you trying to ask me if human beings have intrinsic value for simply being human beings?
Not just human beings. I would say
let's start there. We have to start somewhere, so let's start there.
I would say let's even make it more simple. Americans, right?
Okay. Do Americans have value in simply being Americans? And when I say value, I just mean, does it have... I don't think worth is the right word. It's difficult to define value.
Well, it's difficult to find art. So have fun. That's why I'm saying you over here disguising your words in fucking smoke and shadows. Come out, you fucking wizard. I would say
it's not smoke and mirrors. It is a real honest attempt, not on my part, but people I've read.
And that's the thing. Where's the intersection between what you have read and your discernment for how you feel?
Yes. Okay.
That's the key.
So there is the feeling that one is in communion with the dead who have written a lot of work, and a lot of respect for people that have written these things. And you realize that you're not so alone in how you think about the world. And so my first time reading these books, I didn't have any opinion about what I thought art was. It was simply a matter of, oh, here are these dudes that have some thoughts. Then you start reading them on your own, and then you start going to college and you're reading that. A lot of good ideas.
What good do you mean? Like
a lot of well thought out ideas. A lot of pages written. A lot of gibberish. A lot of stuff that when you read it, it's a thing you have to read again, and you have to read it again, and you have to read it again, until the sixth time you read it, you don't understand it any different than the first time you read it. So that's the first step for me in trying to figure that out, was to read. Now you're asking me what I think art is. My honest opinion of art, and I came to this conclusion the other day, was art is not even the painting. That's kind of, people will say that's the true art, the art that ends up in the museums, right? Art is the act of actually making the art. That is to say, every 5 minutes I give to a poem, every 10 minutes I give to it, in between lunch break on work and trying to run to the store, every high-induced listening to Erykah Badu and Freddie Gibbs, high dancing, trying to figure out what I want to say, meandering on the typewriter, talking on the phone to somebody, eating a half of a sandwich while trying to write in pencil while something's boiling on the stove. All of these kind of intermingled confusions and trying to figure out what exactly you're trying to mine out of the English language. That act of doing it, that is the art. It's not what you come up with. Yeah, we have great poems and novels and paintings, and we put them in books and people read them and it's great and we all clap. But that's not why we do it. We don't do it for that reason.
That's interesting. Interesting. I'll give you that. I'll clap for you because I feel like this is the first time I've actually heard your opinion.
8 years, everybody. 8 years.
Right.
It's great. It's great.
Now I'm gonna say there's a caveat. There's a big caveat, and you're not gonna like it. That's you just literally described evolution in itself.
Yeah.
Like
It's not.
imagine particles just floating in fucking nothing, hitting each other until shit happens.
It's randomness, bro.
And that's the whole point. And that's what I was getting at. Everything is art to me because you have to understand the fucking randomness of the ability for us to sit here and talk to each other now. How many fucking collisions, how many fucking deaths, how many fucking births had to have happened for this, right? And the fact that you are a soul creator in your own right, and everything that you touch becomes something, right? Now, that is where I say everything is art, because just when you pick up a pen, that is art in itself. The way you hold your pen is art. The way you say your name or say somebody else's name is art. Everything we do, the way we walk. Like, I don't understand how somebody could say that one movement is more important than another. If I am waking up to brush my teeth, that's still a movement. That is still my purpose. You can't see it because I spit the shit down the drain. But if I would spit it on the wall, you'd be like, oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
And I think that's the thing, and something I've been contending with the past couple of days is, do museums house art? And it's not, it's very clear that, okay, yes, an artist made this, and okay, the board of curators at XYZ museum was like, oh, this is really great, let's hang it up in our museum, okay. Is the thing that is created the art? I think that's what I was trying to get at earlier. That's what Camus was talking about, but this is through my own words, right? Or is it what they had to go through to make it happen? There was a large Rothko piece, Mark Rothko, at the BMA. It's called Black on Red, and it's a huge piece. It's huge. And it's designed that way for a very reason. It's supposed to overwhelm you by its sheer the sheer landscape it takes up and the very the depth of the colors of this painting. While he was creating this painting, is that the art of what he imagined it was going to be? And then it became something. Okay, yes, and now it's this painting, black on red that's hanging in the BMA. That's cool. But I don't really care about that anymore. Like, I want to know, like, those, not even, like, those manic fits that people go through when they're trying to think about a problem. Like, whether it's a math problem or creative or an artistic problem. What are the movements? And I think for me, the meaning making is in those movements. It's not what I make and you read it and we clap. It is
exactly. Yeah. You are preaching to the choir. And my question is, those movements fall on dead ears. But that is the art. That is the art, though. Our words have fallen on deaf ears. Mm. But that does not detract from what it is. Mm. And it only takes that one person, like at the beginning of the episode, to lock on and entrance them. Mm. And that is when it's art.
Is in the trance.
In that moment where you get that feeling of what I felt when I said it.
Yes.
Right? That's it. So yes, that toilet, it can be art, because Lord knows if I had to take a shit and I took a dump in that toilet, we both experienced the same thing, because I know that man that created it did the same thing. And I respect him for that. And that's why I see it as art. Yes, it's functional. Okay, people can kill me about the necessity of things, but that what is the purpose? There's none. No purpose at all. But if you say that, then that means that everything around us is created for nothing, and everything that we do later is for nothing, which is fine if you don't see anything for the future. Time doesn't matter anymore.
That disposition to nothing mattering, that's nihilism.
Yes.
And I do, it's difficult to not, it's difficult to not agree with what he's saying, though, in my mind, because to say that I, as a writer, am always in a creative frenzy is not true. Not everything I do is creative. You may view it as like, ooh, all these people that are so obsessed with the life and death of artists that they read these great memoirs about people and the 600 pages long. I think that's kind of the point of Kurt Vonnegut. It's like, it's kind of all ridiculous. Like all of it, not just the United States myth. In some way, the fact that he wrote this book is a little ridiculous. It's all a little absurd. And I think not to be taken so seriously. And then we create. And that's the meaning right there. And yeah, I'm not doing it all the time, though. I don't agree with that.
You say you're not doing it all the time, but is that just not your awareness?
No, you have to enter into it. It's not and it's not even like an on and off kind of switch. It's more, for me, and this is why I say that all self-help writing books are a bunch of bullshit. You have to, for me, it's entering into this mode of, I'll light the incense burner, I got the tea going, I'm listening to music, I'm writing things down. I even have a pad on the refrigerator now. Sometimes I write on that. Sometimes I write on the typewriter. Sometimes I write inside of a book. I have books all over the place. And so you start to get into the muse. You start to get into that flow. And I'll never forget this moment. I was dating my ex-girlfriend at the time, and she was working at a crepe shop, and I had my laptop, and I was writing a short story. And I had this really annoying guy there that was working with her at the time. I was sitting there in a cafe. And I'm in this, when you're in that mode of creation, you're in it. You can't exit it. I'm sitting there like writing about this dude that is friends with a sculptor, and like he's this guy that is busking in like that downtown DC or some shit. I'm figuring out all like the narration. And he says, hey, Franco, and he taps me on the shoulder. What are you doing? And I lost it. Like I just like in that instant, just lost what I was going to say in that story. And I exited that moment with me and the story in relation to that story because he pulled me out of it. And I don't think I've ever been that mad in my entire life. Because you robbed me of that intimacy with my work. So that's why I say to you, it all has the potential to be art. Everything around me, everything, even this glass, this ball on the table, this robe, this book, this rock, is lighter. All these things have the propensity to create something wonderful based on my relation to it. But otherwise, it's just chilling. And it's here, and it'll do fine until I decide to pick it up, and then I'll make something out of it. So I think the nuance here for both of these arguments is its potential to be something. That's it.
Potential.
Potential energy, kinetic energy,
One would hope that the amount of energy that you potentially put into an object, it would then turn into kinetic energy.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes.
It would kind of suck if you would lift something very high up in the sky and it only falls halfway.
Well, it's not always that pretty,
Tell me when lifting something and it floats there and it just sits there.
That is what we call writer's block.
You call it writer's block. So in your analogy, you were whatever that white dude is pushing the boulder up the mountain, and
Sisyphus, yeah.
You didn't have to say his name. It was a test you failed. I called him that on purpose. But he is forever pushing his boulder up the hill, right?
Yep.
And when the dude taps you on your shoulder, that was like you tripping and the boulder falling all the way back down the hill.
No, in the story, he rolls it up and back down. It goes up and back down. It has to roll up every day.
Okay. All right. So it's like noon and he's got it halfway up and then he just has to start over, right? So you were there. And then you weren't. But
right.
What is the art? Getting back into...
Yeah, it's getting back into that mode.
Right. So
it's difficult to re-enter once it's gone. It's very difficult in that same
at the same time, we do this all the time. We leave a mode and all we do is try to get back into it.
Yep.
It's like that is the art, would you say? Is just attempting to get into that mode or stepping into those shoes?
Yeah, it's interesting thought.
Once you're there, what happens?
Yeah, then you're in the midst of creation. So, yeah, I think that a lot of what I consider real objects, realism, operating in the real world, that they are facilitators for creation. So everything that I do to try to conjure that mode I'm referring to, they are help facilitating that, right? They're not art in and of themselves, but they allow me to create it. Yes, they are there to assist.
But how can you make money?
Fuck it.
No, and that's the whole point. You gotta fucking live somewhere, or you can live on an underpass.
So I am really against this idea of a starving artist. I don't understand where this romanticized idea comes from.
What?
It's very cliche and
is it?
It's ridiculously cliche.
Okay, all right. I mean, you can never judge it until you become it, right?
That's true.
So,
but I think it is a romanticized ideal. If you recall, I was working at a number of delis before I worked in corporate.
That's not the same.
And Well, I mean, it's kind of the same. Plenty of artists do that. People work a number of jobs that are artists, or they go to open mics and they have galleries that try to sell their work, and they often have to work one or two jobs, and it's just a matter of fact.
No, would you agree that majority of those jobs are mindless?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You are able to still, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that's any different from corporate. And why I say to you that, you know, real estate and trying to have some kind of form of passive income and wealth, having that created, having a home that, you know, it can be paid off, and then once it's paid off, it's like, okay, well, cool. Then I have a place to. I will always have a place to go. I will never have to be in fear that if I quit my job to pursue art solely for artistic purposes and not trying to accumulate wealth from it, although potentially it would, that I wouldn't have to worry about that. So it's this.
See, I'm the exact opposite, believe it or not. I feel as though that need and that hunger and that desperateness, if that's a word, that you are in, is that secret sauce that you need. We all know about.
This doesn't need to be a financial desperation, though.
Okay, that's what you say. All right, buddy. But what I have to say is,
no, I really do think they're very harmful ideas, and I mean that quite seriously. I think that the idea that artists would have to starve in order to make art, it is the same mode that artists has to have a certain kind of mental incapacitation.
I'm gonna tell you, Frank, that I'm trying to draw a parallel between being starving because you're poor and starving because you're property.
Okay.
The desperation to survive while maintaining some air of artisticness, that's a true love. You are willing to die for your love. You said fuck it.
I guess what I want to say is, I think, and maybe I'm misspeaking here, there's this idea that when I'm not talking about people that honestly they've done it through their lives and have not attended college. So I think this idea that college students in particular, speaking of somebody who was a college student, right? Mm-hmm. We have a lot of ignoble ideas about this grandiosity about these artists from yonder, that went through a number of stages to get where they got to. Yes, they did, and they ended up where they did because of what they did, right? That does not mean that you also have to go through that to get the same artistic aspirations and achievements you want.
Yeah, I can say that, but
so I want to clarify what I mean, but I think you're talking about a very different thing.
I'm just talking about like why certain people I can't listen to, like certain singers, I can't listen to their music.
Okay.
Because when I listen to their music, it hurts my feelings.
Mm-hmm. All right, go ahead.
Like the encapsulation of your art, although people want to undermine it by just calling it the A word, but to me, it's literally you. It's a portion of your soul in any form. And I think one of the things that I've really appreciated about music in particular is the way that it's encapsulated. You and other people are visuals, but it's hard to really convey your feelings through visual means unless you've been trained to see it. Don't think I've ever been able to look at a piece of art and see distress or sorrow or pain. Now, of course, that's the beauty in it, right? That's why one of the artists I listened to, or I watched her, give out her artwork. She had these little cards, and I asked her how she did it, and she said that's why she gets paid the big bucks, because her process is something that mesmerized me. Not the art, but how she got there.
Right.
It didn't tell me anything about her. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if. I mean, I'd have to see these cards. I mean, do you have one?
I have pictures on my phone, but they don't do it justice. Maybe we can go visit her.
That would be great.
You can see for yourself.
That would be great.
Because, like, what's the most effective art form?
I don't know if there's any right answer for that.
I asked for you, not
I did.
for
I
the
did
world.
want to. Well, two things. The first thing I wanted to say, I wanted to follow up with what you had said about aspiring. That we were aspiring to speak on something in relation to art. So Toni Morrison, there's this Toni Morrison quote that I love so much. She says, "Language can never pin down slavery, genocide, war, nor should it yearn for the arrogance to be able to do so. Its force, its felicity is in its reach toward the ineffable." And ineffable is
SAT word.
Too great or extreme to be expressed or described in words.
So basically nothing.
It is. So she says its force, its felicity, which is an intense happiness or the ability to find appropriate expression for one's thoughts, is in its reach toward that which we can't explain. That's it. She's literally saying what we just have been talking about, which is it's the process. It is a joy in the process of which we will never actually be able to really capture what we mean. We all have these ideas in our head about what we want it to mean. Son of a bitch, if I could only capture all these, I'm standing in the shower, like all these different thoughts, and like then I come running out of the shower, dripping wet, I had to write the shit down, and I remember half of it.
No, see, that's called a fucking cell phone. You stand in that fucking shower. I wrote this down, right? I said, "What? Let me find it. Let me find." And this is, oh my god, this is fucking years of just crazy ass thoughts. So basically, would you ever say that a piece of art is done? Is that what you would call art then? If it can never be actually finished, there's always something more to do. If it has a beginning and an end, it technically isn't art.
There is no beginning and end. It's only it's good enough. That's the best we can say about that.
And the punchline for tonight's episode is that is exactly why the Germans lost the war.
Oh. Really?
What is true? They were trying to be too good at everything. You gotta suck somewhere.
This is one of my old poems. I don't know if I've ever actually read this. I think I tried to submit this poem to a number of publications.
And what did it do?
Rejected.
See, and this is the thing. You are very ironic to me in a good way. because you are so innocent. And the fact that you can read these men that have lived from hundreds of years ago, right? Lived different worlds, lived a life we never could. And the fact that you read it with respect, and to think if you lived at the time of them, they probably wouldn't have gave two shits about you.
Right.
That's
true.
That's the crazy part. It's a life of always being second to that one guy.
That's very true. I didn't think about it that way, but that's a good point.
Because we already know how these dudes lived. They had some extravagant times, but most of the time they were doing some fucked up shit.
Oh yeah.
So there was a reason why they got killed, right?
I think it was because they were taught to me in a system of innocence.
Right. And that's the whole thing about the pirate, right?
Sea pirate, yep.
All right. So who has the audacity to try to write down what life is? How arrogant do you have to be to sit down and really think about it and say, I'm going to fucking figure this shit out? You must feel very high of yourself. Maybe that's why I've never attempted it, because it's like, okay, all right, great. All right, I think this way. That shouldn't be the end all be all. I don't know.
Yeah, some people try to write systems about what they're trying to say, or what they're trying to imagine what life is, and they've written these massive tomes that have you ever read like Kant's Critique of Judgment? It's like three volumes of like his trying to systematize moral categories. Like, okay,
he got butthurt that Jesus said he was going to hell. Understood.
Yikes. I'd like to read this poem I wrote. Okay, this poem that I have written. This is the first time this is being shared publicly. Actually, that's probably not true, but
after that,
if it is true,
FBI already hacked your computer, bro. Just say it. Just read it.
I already know. I already have all my poems that nobody can read.
You're gonna come out in 50 years, and they're gonna have that vault for Franco Tartaglia.
Can I just ask you a question? Do you know anybody quite like me?
I mean, your Discord name is very telling of who you are. I just wonder one day we'll be able to do like the whole snapshot of our lives and just to like go back and physically see what we were doing like 50 years ago. And I can just see you scratching your head like a fucking monkey. Like, what the fuck was I doing?
I feel like I'll be doing that forever. Probably even the day after I have that revelation. So, this poem is called "All Goes Outward, Nothing Collapses." When I was a child, I was not daunted. I let myself go completely exhausted, feeling a job well done. Fought in the creek with whittled sticks past the dead-end sign of my childhood's street. Even with a broken arm, I did not yield to pain. Exhaustion is its own elation. I have become a building among others. Look how tall I am, stable. Building blocks, let me construct myself of Lego. Directions are never clear. Though I was a child, I did not think of what it meant to be small. An old photo is one memory. I am looking for a trap door to discover lost relics of youth, like finding balled up socks underneath a bed. The sprinkler would shoot on. I'd take off through it. It rains. I reach for a shield. I'm all right. It's Monday. Cultists threaten to consume me. I grow outward in a panic. Like a vine, I will not let go. Cinch to the dirt, twist up a fixed metal ladder to the top. From this height, I remember rickety swing sets. I once swung with such might, I feared making a complete revolution despite the belt. Remember? No rules, except what your parents said. The thrill in breaking them, accepting what comes.
So when are you quitting your day job?
As they say, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I wrote this shit more than a year ago.
So when are you just going to put all of your shit in a book?
Well, I have already emailed my... Yeah.
No, fuck email. To put the shit in the book and publish the shit your goddamn self and throw a fuck you to the whole community.
Yeah, so I remember, or rather, excuse me, I had emailed my UMBC professor, Leah Purpura, who she taught me poetry and art of the essay in college. So my first class with her, my first artistic class with anybody, I had introduction to fiction, and I had her art of the essay class.
All right, yeah. Quick question: how the fuck? All right, so I'm coming from like a technical background where like we just like do homework every day and then we take a test. What the fuck did y'all do? Y'all read and then wrote?
Oh, we read, and actually the idea of having an offering, I come up with these poems. It was from her class. We'd all have to, beginning of each class, we'd have, things we wanted to share, whether that was community, things that were happening. It might have been a poem, it could have been any number of things, but it was the ritual that you would present something you thought was worth knowing to the rest of your peers. So that was in our poetry class. It was a lot of reading, it was a lot of writing, there was multiple drafts, so you would break out into groups and you'd have your first draft and people would be like, well, this is good. And you have to understand, critiquing in workshop, providing critiques of work.
Does it even happen?
Yes, there are rules. And there are rules because, quite frankly, undergraduates are assholes.
Okay, God.
There are things you should and should not do in a workshop. According to, that's their rules, they're the professors. One of the things that Leah always suggested, I think my other professor, Ryan Bloom, who incidentally translated Albert Camus' third notebook from French into English. I actually did not know he taught at UMBC, or rather he studied Camus until after I had already studied Camus independently several years ago. And then when I wanted to take fiction, he incidentally also studied Camus. I thought that was really cool. So one of the things that she wanted us to do was you always have to say something good about the work first. And I think that starting off on that right footing really allows somebody to be receptive of criticism, because I think all too often how we approach critique, not only in workshop, but let's just say across the board in general towards human beings, is a little brazen and quite frankly not the best communication. So I think that starting off with by saying, I really like this about the work and I think you did this well, and then that allows you the opportunity to say something you feel like could be better, right?
I thought, and for me, that's actually reverse. I was taught that you give your critique first and then you build second.
Because nobody's listening at that point. They've already too defensive from the fact that you've criticized their work. Right?
Okay. All right. I've always been under the assumption that the only thing they remember is the last thing you said.
Nope. I have always felt that because, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to say something nice about you so that I can say something negative about you. It's an honest attempt to really engage people because we're so often so quick to just assume the negative when we see that very clear in our mind when we're reading something.
Do you know where that comes from, though? Like the whole, when you say something negative, the person gets defensive and so they won't hear the positive afterwards?
It's probably some defense mechanism. No idea, though.
Yes, it's a defense mechanism. And I can't find the article, but there was an article about how one of the things that police officers should learn is that in high stressful situations, people actually lose their hearing. They actually could lose their motor skills as well.
Yes.
Or they could, do twitch movements and all this stuff. So it's interesting you say that because it makes me think that's a huge scale. I'm not saying that when you critique somebody, it's like you got a gun to their face. But at the same time, they still can have that response and they don't even know it.
Yeah, I don't know if all these things can be universally applied, but let's just say
I could definitely see you reading that poem and somebody says, you know what? I don't
it's
like
garbage. Yeah.
Do you remember what happened after that dude interrupted you from writing your short story? You said you were madder. You were more mad than you'd ever been. Do you remember the ending of that?
No, You mean, wait, the ending of the conversation between him and I, or the ending of the story?
Just in general.
The ending. I don't know. I just kind of gave him a look. I didn't really say anything, though. I just kind of looked at him. And then I went back to typing, I feel like. But at that point was kind of, frivolously typing because what was the use, really?
Back to what you were saying.
But no, I think that... So yeah, workshop works in that way. We begin with, again, according to these rules, saying something positive about it. And one of the rules of Ryan Bloom had suggested that I follow, actually to this day, was that you do not answer any questions about your work. That if the poem or the work or whatever is good enough, right, it should speak for itself, which is where that comes from.
Dude, you have to understand, we live in two totally fucking different worlds.
Right.
Imagine.
I understand that. This is why this friendship works out so great, right?
Just fucking imagine I build something and some Jews say, why did you do that? I'm like, because I did. He goes, oh, okay, all right, cool, all right. That's what's up, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. It's not an indictment of, well, we don't answers to, we don't answer any questions, right? It's, if we're workshopping the poem, right? And we're trying to figure out what the poem is trying to show to us, then the creator of that poem should have done it, right? So if I didn't do it, then that's something I have to go back and figure out. I'm not going to sit there and talk to these people about what I think it should be. I am the creator of this poem. The purpose of a workshop is for everybody else to figure out what they like about it, what they don't like about it, what they made them feel, all these different questions they have. But in terms of direct questions of, well, what did you mean when you did this? Those kind of questions, if it wasn't clear in the poem, then that's my problem. Right? It's not a problem that you and I need to figure out. It's something that I failed to communicate, so I need to go back and work on it.
They're just a bunch of assholes not answering each other.
Exactly. So no, it's actually quite constructive because it's not a math problem, right? If it were a math problem, we're logistically trying to figure it out. Yeah, if it's like a question of like rhythm or like a more technical question, then that's something that yes, I think would be acceptable to discuss. But we're talking about
like why
questions.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, like, I'm not going to answer that question because I think it's a dumb question, honestly. I meant what I said. If you didn't understand it, then I probably didn't explain it well enough. That's my kind of thought. That maybe I
can tell. I can tell you've never gotten into an argument with a black woman.
I have been.
Well, I can tell you have not won any arguments.
I've not.
That is the straight way to go to jail.
No,
do not pass
I definitely
go.
don't. I don't approach my poems the same way I approach my relationships like but you know, when approaching these works, you kind of have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you have to be willing to take the criticism because we have a lot to learn. And I don't really know why I brought up the workshop. I think you would ask me what did you ask me?
It doesn't matter. At this point, you're actually saying stuff that you believe, and I'm just at awe at that.
No. Well, I mean, you have to understand that writing, I've been at this for, when did I graduate? In 2016?
Yeah.
Is that it? 2017? I think it was 2017. But I continued to take classes after I graduated. This is the thing that I've probably done the longest, that I've invested the most time in, that I've attended a number of conferences and workshops and met some great poets from all across the country and attended a number of talks and went to there was that big AWP conference in DC, and a lot of time in the museum, and a lot of time at cafes, a lot of time talking amongst people on forums, and now I'm in this online. Like, I've dedicated so much fucking time to doing this that you would think that I would have decided to get published, which brings me up to my next point, which was I finally asked Leah, I said, is there like a database, or like how exactly do you go about publishing? There's a number of websites that you use are submittable. There are all these various AWP as a search engine you can use to submit and get have deadlines and stuff, shit like that. So I'm in the process of doing that. I want to begin to do that next year. I got my passion planner came in the mail. I'm trying to work out a plan to start submitting. Yes, I also have a plan to write a manuscript. And the manuscript I'm working on right now, which is something we've already talked about, is this idea of the table. And I think that idea is kind of evolving. It's like kind of about food, kind of about the table. It's about a number of things. But, I'm trying to make a manuscript by the end of this year. We will see. We will see.
Okay. I would like for you to Google something for me real quick.
Yep.
I would like for you to look up the Poets' Code of Ethics.
Is that a thing?
You know what? I didn't think it was a thing until I searched it because it was not coming up. I already know the engineering code of ethics. It was like we learned that the first week of school. The number one thing is don't kill anyone.
Well, I will say to you that the one of the rules of being a poet is to be a witness. That was the one thing that I learned from. I was at Folger's Shakespeare Library in DC. Actually, I think I called you that day because I remember, I don't know if you recall this, I was paranoid that so many people were riding bicycles and nobody was driving a car, like literally no cars. But the poet at the talk was Carolyn Forche, and she had translated a number of Eastern European writers, particularly during a number of wars. And it was this idea that people were witnessing atrocities, and that the role of the poet was to capture and witness these as they were occurring, right? Poetry is very much of the body. And so to, imagine a poet witnessing George Floyd being strangulated, right? These very human, bodily, physical interactions of the world, I feel like is almost our duty. But let me look up this.
I already sent it to you.
Who's this white dude?
It's always a white dude. Just accept it.
Come on, bro.
You know, and I was thinking the whole time you were talking, like, damn, I wish that some dude could translate, you know, some crazy ass, you know, philosophical work from another language, you know, not French, but maybe, you know. But oh well, you know, who cares, right? Who's counting?
What is this bullshit, bro?
Mm-hmm.
That's some bullshit.
It's funny you call it that. It shows your arrogance. Just shut the fuck up and read it.
Poet's Code of Ethics, The Twilight Club, written by some white dude. Number one.
Oh, no. His name is Sisyphus.
Number 1. Attain the brotherhood of man, ideal by giving righteous action and good will service to every man, instead of taking from him which he has... What? He has discovered that all men are extensions of each other, that man is made for man, and that the hurt of one man is the hurt of all men. 2.
Interesting.
Develop character, intelligence, and good citizenship by teaching every man from early youth to be a good neighbor and loyal citizen. Number 3. Discover man's inner self by awakening within him that spark of divine light which lies dormant in every man. 4. Realize that work done for the material world should be for man's ennoblement, for man's ennoblement, and not for grinding his soul out in the years of industrial machines. 5. Know that man is mind, not body. 6. That he is immortal spirit, not mortal flesh. 7. And that he is good, not bad. 8. Judge the righteousness and religion of any man by what he does to his fellow man, and not by his beliefs, doctrines, creeds, or dogmas. This is awesome bullshit. Like, this whole thing.
Listen. All I'm going to say is this right now. Y'all need to get y'all shit together, because this is some bullshit. I don't know what the fuck this is, but y'all code of ethics need to be better than this.
It's some bullshit, bro.
5, know that man is mind, not body.
That's like anti-poet. Poet is all body.
7, and that he is good, not bad. Bullshit. Yeah, I think y'all can start by, you know, having like a little meeting on this, you know, to validate yourselves.
Get all the poets together.
Right. I think this is
of poets.
That like segues into like why that when Chappelle said that's why women are always second. They just need to come together. Just get y'all shit together. You know what I mean? Just do it.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a very interesting example. But yes, that's true.
Poets will always be second.
Let's get our shit together then. Okay. I will convene a meeting.
Right. So
with the poets of Baltimore.
Right, and poets are going to rule the world afterwards, right?
That's what Plato said, right?
Exactly.
Oh wait, I thought those were the philosopher kings. Never mind.
Oh, guess what?
Oops.
So yeah, bro. I think this break is good. It'll allow y'all to get y'all shit together, and y'all can like really, you know, bang out these codes.
Wait, so we got 6 weeks to get the codes together?
I mean, that's not hard. That's a code in a quarter.
Wait, so you want me to get a code together in 6 weeks and tell it to you on air?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Because I'll be honest, I'm pretty fucking confused right now. And I'm not the only one. Now, albeit, I may be confused for other reasons besides why everybody else is confused.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting because you don't really think about poetry and poets as having a code, because they don't necessarily create something that can intrinsically hurt someone else. But ironically, those words have lasted longer than any fucking bridge. So poets are the time travelers. Me,
Yes, we are.
The dudes fucking tinkering with shit, building stuff, yeah, that'll rust away and then become dirt again. So maybe y'all really do have to start fighting. Because we don't really talk about racism in poetry, do we? Racism in a lot of arts.
Maybe I just read that Audre Lorde poem last time.
Yeah, but I mean, like, that's giving awareness to it. How many
within the field?
Yeah, think of like how we're gonna have to read this book called The Heart of Darkness. It was a European rendition of the Congo River and what the now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo was like back then, and how that shaped an entire region of the world to see Africa, the continent of Africa, as this terrible place, and how that in itself and other books created the climate that we live in today. I understand, like, yes, the Persians had really good boats, and then after it was the Persian, it was the Portuguese who had the biggest boats. So they were the first ones to travel and traverse the continent of Africa. But yeah, they built that boat. But where's that boat now? Shit's on the bottom of the fucking ocean. Where's the information that they learned? We're still talking about it. So yeah, you keep watching, Frank, and you keep doing that. But just make sure you're on the right side of the shit. So
I'm gonna be what? I'm gonna be writing this code of ethics over the break. What are you gonna be doing?
Not a damn thing, because I'm good over here, bro.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool.
No, as always, what I do is I build bridges. So I'll begin to build bridges over the break and begin to find like-minded people so we can spotlight them, and then we can talk about how our podcast can intersect with their beliefs and their goals.
Yes.
I've already started doing it, actually, but...
See, at Future City I sent you?
Yeah.
It's Baltimore-based?
Yeah.
I sent you the Charm City, Discover Charm City. I actually followed her from a couple of years ago. I think she originally was posting food on Instagram.
Yeah. I was going more for like the people who actually like... I like the what was it called? Future City?
Yeah.
Or how they produce something. I like the producers of the world. I have a thing for production, so I think that'll be my thing. I will spotlight on the people that actually are not trying to make a difference with their words, but with their hands. And you can do people trying to make a difference with their words.
Yes.
So.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to have to do an intro. You're going to do an intro for our Christmas special and the penultimate ultimate.
Oh my god, I can't believe you retards didn't know what penultimate meant, but you know.
I'm sorry, Frank. Not everybody was able to sit with their books and learn these things, okay?
Yikes.
I would have loved to learn that word because that was actually one of my SAT words, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's a great word.
Yep, and I got it wrong.
I don't think we need an intro. We didn't have an intro for the Thanksgiving special.
Yes, we did.
What did we say?
I said, well, hey, everybody. It's the Thanksgiving special. You forgot?
Hey, guys. Happy Christmas.
Whoa. Happy Christmas. Jesus fucking.
Happy holidays.
Oh, my God.
Hey, listeners. Thank you for listening. How'd you like that redundancy? Was that pretty good?
All I'm going to say is this.
This is all going on the podcast.
Happy Christmas and Merry Holidays. Right? That's pretty much what you fucking said. I was like,
there's Kwanzaa, there's Hanukkah,
oh my God.
there's the New Year, and then it's gonna be the New Year. It's gonna be 2021, right, guys? And then you're all gonna do the same shit you said you weren't gonna do last year. But I digress.
I mean, I know there's one thing that I'm not going to be doing next year.
What's that? Hello?
That was it. It's done. Oh my God. All right, let's actually fucking end this, please.
All right, what do we do? I said stop.
No. Let's actually give an intro and then do an outro.
Oh, I thought we weren't going to do that.
Oh my God. If this motherfucker doesn't
I mean, we don't have to.
just say hello. This is Cricket Time Podcast. This is our Christmas special, right? And our last episode of the season.
You just said it though, right?
No, but I didn't say it in my podcast.
Oh, you didn't say it in your podcast voice. Hey guys, this is Franco. Hope everybody's having a nice holiday. This is our Christmas special.
Why are you snapping? What the fuck are you snapping for?
I'm practicing, okay? I'm trying to practice.
What are you about to join a fucking jazz group?
This podcast can't take up all of my time, Kelly. I have to practice in between. He said you're going to join a jazz group. I just said my part. Go ahead. Your turn. Go ahead. Hey guys, this is our Christmas special. I hope everybody's enjoying their nice holiday break. This is our final episode of the season, and we hope to see you back here in February for season 2.
There's nothing I can say after that. That was perfect. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Yeah, have a good one. See you guys next year. Feliz Navidad.